How old am I again? What's happening, my fellow geeks and geekettes? Welcome to a brand new episode of Chris's Custom Collectibles. And today we are going to be pimping out the Mattel Jurassic World Legacy Collection Tyrannosaurus Escape Pack. Now these things have been doing the rounds all over social media, online and in stores, and they're replicating the Tyrannosaurus attack from the first film, complete with a little Timmy action figure. So the purpose of this custom collectible is we're gonna be doing a nice dynamic diorama featuring the setting from this particular scene in the first film. So what I'm gonna do is unbox him, take him out and see what we're dealing with. So it does come with the T-Rex, the truck and little Timmy. Probably not going to be using the little Timmy action figure. What I'm hoping for is to have the T-Rex all detailed with the car all crushed and muddy, along with some parts of the electrical fence, which you can actually see as the background in the back of this box. Okay, so these retail for about 70 or 80 Australian dollars here in Australia, and that's pretty darn good considering this is like the legacy collection and, you know, this might be a collector's item one day. Highly doubt it, but still cool nonetheless, and the packaging and presentation is pretty cool with that backdrop as well with all the rain. So pop the tail in like that. Ah, cool. The movement on her is amazing. You can get some really good articulation. That mouth is incredible. So we're going to be utilizing the pre-existing paint job, and it's just going to be a series of washes. Okay, one truck. Now in the film, the truck is flipped upside down with Timmy in it, so I don't know. I do want it this way up, but also damaging it and crushing it in certain areas because it is a beautiful representation. Upside down just looks a bit boring. If I can have one of the T-Rex's feet on the bonnet and kind of crush the bonnet in, this would be so much easier if it were die cast, but it's plastic. So this is gonna be a bit tricky. It's gonna get messy, but that's fine, that's totally fine. That's what we're going for, mess and mud. I mean, it's a decent looking figure of the kid who played Timmy. Hi, Dr. Grant. Ah, no, little Timmy, no. How old am I again? Or I could have her on top of the car. Maybe that's the way to go about it. Yeah, maybe that's the way to go about it. I think that's gonna look best. Have her on the car and crush in areas of the car where all the weight of her would crush those areas of the car. And I think, yeah, that's the way to go about it. This will be the front of the diorama. At the back here, we're gonna have the... What's wrong? What's wrong with you? It's the dog from across the way. What? Go talk to him. Go talk to him. Off you go. Dogs, man. So this is gonna be the front of the diorama, and at the back here, I'm gonna have the wall with the electric fence and have it all damaged. There's gonna be a lot of mud. We can crack and crush in the top here and crush in the bonnet and just go to town weathering this. So this is just gonna be weathering heaven, geeks and geekettes. So first things first, we're gonna be detailing the big girl herself. So with that being said, let's get to it. Alrighty, so before we actually get to customizing the T-Rex herself, I'm gonna backtrack a little. We're gonna be hitting the car itself with a heat gun, and what that is gonna do is soften all the plastic on top here, and then I'm gonna grab the T-Rex and put it on top so we can smush down certain parts so it naturally looks like she's crushing the top of this car. Now, I am definitely gonna take my time with heating up this portion of the car on the bonnet because all the decals here, they're actual stickers, and if you give it too much heat, they're gonna melt, curl up, and come off. So I really wanna take my time heating up this area here, but I feel just having some crushing elements on the car, which makes sense because, you know, you've got a very heavy T-Rex on top of this car. It's gonna crush in certain areas and buckle, and that's what I'm going for. So again, before we do any weathering, customizing washes to the T-Rex or the truck, we gotta crush this top here just by adding a bit of heat, but we gotta take our time. When in doubt, just do it by hand. Can you hear the table shaking? There we go. That's better. poor car is so mangled. I mean, look, that looks pretty legit to me. Oh god, that poor car. Welcome to some shitty commentary. I had to, geeks and geekettes. So I'm just going in with some pliers and really wrecking the windshield, especially with the side cutters there. It gives the illusion that the windscreen has cracked. Now, if you're familiar with Custom Collectibles, you know the drill. I'm gonna grab some shoe polish, this time around some brown shoe polish, and I'm gonna be coating the entire T-Rex with this brown shoe polish. I didn't go with black because the details would be popping too much, and I think with the T-Rex it's all about subtlety, so we're not going to be dabbing away the excess. In this instance, we're just going to be letting it dry, and you really want to let it dry because some parts do build up a bit and are quite liquefied and can take a little bit longer to dry than other areas. But again, we are covering the entire sections of the T-Rex, and what we're then going to do is grab a scourer sponge in some boiling hot water. Well, not boiling hot, not to the point where it's uncomfortable, and then scour away the excess. And by having the water hot, it just helps soften that shoe polish back down. And as you can see, the details are starting to pop already, especially where there's a lot of wrinkles in the sculpt, and the sculpt on this thing is absolutely stunning. Mattel have really upped their game. Like, look at all that beautiful neck detail. It turned out much better than I expected, and clearly I'm getting carried away because I'm pulling her out of frame. There we go, I readjusted, I realized what I was doing. And once the scouring process was done, it was then time to go in with some oil color. Now, for the most part, I only used the black and the burnt umber of the oil colors. Now, to me, oil colors is like an airbrush when you don't have an airbrush, so to speak. You can get some great effects here with having a little bit of the oil color on a brush, a minimal amount, kind of like dry brushing. And I'm going in around her eyes, on the nose, and the temples of her head, because there is a lot of shading going on here. And when I looked at the Stan Winston T-Rex, the giant puppet they built for the first film, her eyes are quite dark, and it makes those eyes of hers really pop, those big, beautiful yellow eyes. And also around the mouth, just a lot of shading, particularly with the head, and you can see right there's a massive difference already. Now, when it came to the back of her, so to speak, I had to start off with the brown and then build up to a black, and I wanted that running all the way down right to the tip of the tail. Again, using reference from the Stan Winston puppet, and that just seemed to work best overall. Again, if you don't have an airbrush, I highly recommend using artist oils. They're absolutely amazing, and once they dry, they are brilliant. Now, one thing I noticed, the mouth opening was way too mechanical looking, so I grabbed some red Liquitex ink, some rubber latex, and some flour and mixed it together, and I went in the inside of the mouth, so I want the mouth open like she's belting out a big roar, and we're going to be covering up all the areas that look too mechanical and too manufactured, if that makes sense. And there we go, the end result. It was just a lot of filling and just trying to get everything looking natural and like an open mouth, and that there's debris and shit in her mouth, so to speak. Now it's time to move on to weathering the car, and this is something that I had a lot of fun with. I'm just getting a brown acrylic paint and watering that down, and then we're gonna start the process of building up our series of washes on this car. Again, the theme here is mud. We want this to look just muddy, disgusting, and going in and starting the process with the watered down brown student acrylic just really helps to make those details pop, because it is a beautiful sculpt, much like the T-Rex, but also it's very dull looking at the same time until you start to build up with a series of washes. And I'm also grabbing a thicker brush and flicking on spritzes of that brown acrylic paint, and that gives the illusion that it's mud that's been kicked up from the tires when they're going through the park. Now, I also placed her back on top of the car just to get the idea that the mud is embedded into the car itself. Now I'm just grabbing some silver rub and buff, and this is for the exposed areas of the car where the paint's been scraped off, like damaged, and then obviously the T-Rex, once she stomped on top of it, the paint would then probably be removed from the car, exposing the metal underneath. And this is the 90s, when cars were built out of metal and not plastic. So I just grabbed some brown shoe polish again, the same brown shoe polish we used at the beginning of the video just to color her teeth, because they're a bit too clean for my liking. And we're just grabbing a high gloss Liquitex varnish and by hand just applying it to the inside of her mouth so her mouth looks nice, fresh and salivary. And that was pretty much in terms of customizing the T-Rex herself. We're gonna start to work on the base. Now this is something I got from Bunnings, just a piece of circular wood. It's almost like a kitchen bench, much like our kitchen bench. So the first step is we're gonna prime this baby with some flat gray primer, and this is gonna help everything just stick and absorb onto the wood itself. And you're gonna see the tarp flap up in a moment. There she goes, because it has been torrentially raining here for the last couple of days and some horrendous wind, not just from me. Now for the actual wall, sorry I had to, I'm just using some styrene I got from the local craft store and measuring it up. Again, this is all eyeballing from the scene in the first Jurassic Park, just cutting it with a blade. And then I cut it in 3 sections because the wall does have a curvature to it from what I can see. It's like it happened, the scene happened on a corner where the wall and the electric fence are, and then I'm just angling them and hot gluing them back together. Now it does have a bit of an angle, so I'm just grabbing some sandpaper, in this case just a sanding pad from the disc sander. It's what I had lying around. You can use whatever you want. And just sanding that angle in and grabbing a hobby file and filing in the separations where it looks like these giant concrete blocks have been placed together, and just hot gluing that back down to the base. And the next step is we're actually gonna prime the styrene. And the good thing is the primer doesn't eat into the styrene. 3, 2, 1, and we are primed and ready to go. Now for the actual tracks for the car, I just used some electrical connectors I found at Bunnings. Again, just very random. I know it's not exactly 100% accurate, but the purpose of Custom Collectables is utilizing stuff that's around you and readily available, especially when it comes to retail stuff. And I'm just gluing them down. I'm gluing everything down that needs to be stuck down because, again, this is all going to be caked up with hobby dirt and PVA glue. Now, I am going to be actually flipping these tracks upside down further into the video because I realize they look like Lego and they look better upside down. So I'm just going to grab some watered down black shoe polish and just start the weathering process of the wall. And I'm doing this before laying down the PVA glue and the hobby dirt, because I want the weathering all over it, because there is going to be hobby dirt crawling up the wall and mushed against the wall, and I just want to get the wall all, just have a base stain, like a first pass of a staining on it before doing any of that. Now, I wanted some safety decal, something that looked like a safety decal, you know, that gray and yellow look that's around the park in the film. So I just got some hobby masking tape, masked off every couple of centimeters, and then just grabbed some yellow acrylic and then just dabbed on. Like, it didn't have to be perfect. Some areas were built up more with the yellow, some had the gray bleeding through, and that's exactly what I wanted. And honestly, this process was so easy, but it was so effective. I just didn't want like a matte black or a gloss black trim. I wanted something a bit different, and just peeling away all that hobby tape there. It only took a couple of minutes to dry. Like, this stuff was pretty quick at drying. And look at that, it just kind of mixes things up a little and just makes the entire base look a bit more dynamic. And I was really happy with that, and that was a very last minute decision. Now, we're gonna be using some PVA glue and some hobby dirt, and if you're wondering where the dirt from the driveway is, it is soaked from the torrential rain. It's muddy, it's disgusting, and it's just, it's probably one of those things where it wouldn't set properly. It'd be quite contaminated and disgusting, unfortunately. So I'm just mixing it up, and the cool thing is the dye from this hobby dirt mixed in with the PVA glue and made it a nice kind of gray base. So it really worked in my favor, like a lot. And it was a great blank canvas when I laid it all down, and this was so therapeutic to do. But the thing is, I didn't want it perfectly covered. I wanted some areas that were still flat, as you can see right there, just from what I can see from that scene in the film. And there you go, there are the flipped upside down tracks. I think they look a lot more accurate, even though they're not 100% accurate. They look a lot better and look like an actual track that would have carried that car through the film. So first pass for the wash is some black shoe polish. just a little bit watered down. This is just gonna add just a bit more depth, and then we're gonna grab some burnt sienna, also watered down, and add that too, just to give that effect of mud, so it's not a grey and black color palette. I want a bit of brown mixed in there because there is some browns in that scene when it comes to the layout of the park and the mud and stuff like that. And I'm also utilizing that brown as well. I'm just going in and staining certain parts of the wall and the cracks and stuff like that. Now those cracks were added just by smushing in the hobby file that I used to embed the grooves in. And now it's time to glue the car down. So I'm fixing it in with some cheap and nasty super glue just to fix it in place, because keep in mind we are going to build it up with some more PVA glue. And as a little Easter egg, I'm adding little Timmy's goggles just behind the car there. And I'm going back in with some more PVA glue and hobby dirt and blending that in, as well as the tires, because you think about it, if the T-Rex is on top of this car, it's smushed into the mud, and there'd be mud built up around the tires and stuff like that, and as well as the track. Now, I didn't capture this on film, but I actually went back in and did some tire tracks. And I'm also trying to blend in, just because I want everything flat packed, I'm blending in the T-Rex's feet on top of the car, but make sure that she's also removable. Because I would like to have this on my Etsy store by the end of this video. And also just blending everything back in with the black shoe polish and the burnt sienna acrylic paint that has also been watered down, just to make sure everything matches. Now it's time to add a bit of fake grass at the back here where all the shrubbery is going to be. Again, I'm not covering the entire surface, I'm just very sporadically covering it with PVA glue, and I've just got some standard railway model hobby grass, I guess you could say, and just sprinkling it on and just letting it set for a good couple of hours. And you do have to take a blow dry to it to remove the excess. But in terms of the poles of the electric fence, that was all balsa wood. And I was really happy with how this turned out. And balsa wood is so fun and so easy to use, but holy shit, it can be very expensive the more you use. So I've got my 3 main poles there, and it consists of 3 pieces with each pole. One is taller than the other 2. The middle one is the tallest. And again, I want this all like flat pack. You can take it apart, so I'm adding stems to it so they feed and slot into the actual concrete, or should I say styrene wall. So I'm just adding this little tab here that is going to house some LED lights. They're going to act as like sirens and alert signals that I found at JCar. Now, I didn't drill holes in for the pegs for the poles, because sometimes drill bits can catch on this foam and it can really get nasty. So I just filed the holes in myself and filed them out by hand. It only took a couple of minutes. As you can see, it just slots in absolutely perfect. So these are the accessories I've got. I've covered the 3 poles in primer, and I went to JCar and I found, well, firstly, sorry, I found some rivets that I had lying around. I went to JCar, and for the accessories, I found a button that you could just rig up to an electrical system. Again, JCar's an electrical shop here. I've got a little dial there. I have no idea what it's for, but it was perfect. And I've got my 2 bulbs. I've got an orange and a turquoise LED bulb that is just going to be purely for show. Now, to house the actual wires, I've got some screw eyes there from Bunnings Warehouse, and they're just going to screw into the back. So again, I'm doing the holes by hand with a file for the rivets, and I'm snapping them in place there, but I go back in and glue them in with the cheap and nasty super glue. This is purely just for show. And I'm now going to glue in that button that's kind of going to act as a siren. To me, it looked like a siren that would be at the top of the main pole in case the T-Rex got out. In this case, she definitely does. And just adding some more cheap and nasty super glue for the LED bulbs right here. And I was really happy with how this turned out. It's the silliest bunch of stuff, but you'll see at the end, it works out. And that little dial there, it's got an on and off switch, like 3 on and off switches there that's going to be at the base of the pole. And just hand screwing in these eye screws and then backing it up with some cheap and nasty super glue to house the hobby wire that's going to act as the electrical wire for the fence. So I'm just grabbing some more of that watered down black shoe polish and going back in and staining everything. And I also backed it up with some more burnt sienna watered down brown acrylic, just to have a sporadic kind of staining going on and rust that's happening on the poles. You know, it's been raining and there'd be rusts and patinas and stuff like that. So this is armature hobby wire that I got from my local hobby store. Threaded them in, cut them in sections, and then hot glued them in place. Otherwise they're gonna fling everywhere. So this was pretty tedious, but I got there in the end. And once all the wires were glued in place, if you're facing the front
of the custom collectible on the left-hand side, I cut the wires as if the T-Rex has smashed them down and escaped through. Because that's the purpose of this custom collectible. She's out and about, she's crushed this car, and she's about to cause utter mayhem. So once they're all cut, I just bent them all sporadically, and just to make it look like that she's escaped. And I was really happy with that. I was really happy with how it turned out, quite frankly. So for the shrubbery, these are 2 plants I got from IKEA. I think all up they were 20 bucks. I got a fern and then a bigger plant, and of course they're fake, they're plastic, and I'm just kind of dismantling them with my side cutters there. Now the bigger plant was really hard because I had a wire armature in it, and like my forearms were like Popeye by the end of it. But in terms of placing them in the back, I want them removable, so I'm not going to glue them down in place, but I used 2 different size drill heads, obviously one for the smaller fern and then for the bigger plant. But again, I want them removable, and that's why the fence poles are removable, and obviously the T-Rex is removable, so I'm not going to be permanently gluing them in place. But again, if you're going to do something like this, I feel you got to go big, like T-Rex big, and have some shrubbery in the back. I think it just really makes the final display. And also the danger sign. I printed these off the net. I just found them on Google, printed them off. I'm gonna have 2. And what I actually did was grab some Spray Fix spray adhesive, and this is some hobby styrene, just so it's thick. And otherwise, you know, you'd just be using paper. And I just glued them down, adhered them down with the spray adhesive to the styrene, and cut them out like so. And then they actually felt like a proper sign, like a proper danger sign. It's the little details, geeks and geekettes. And just grab some more burnt sienna. Again, I had this all lying around and covered up in case I needed to use it, and in this case I did, just to give a slight subtle rust effect around the edges. Again, just a nice little nod to the first film, because those signs are quite prevalent in the film, and I was really happy with that. It took a couple of minutes, and just hot glued them to the left side of the fence where it's broken out, and the right side where the fence is still intact. And I think it really makes the custom collectible pop. As silly as it is, I'm like, yeah, you really got to add the danger signs. Now the last step is to grab that gloss acrylic from Liquitex again and gloss up the ground. Now, I purposely did not gloss the T-Rex because you'd lose the detail. I just wanted the ground to be glossy. But overall, you'll see what I mean, geeks and geekettes. And that being said, it's time for the final reveal. And there we have it, guys. This was one of the most labor-intensive custom collectibles I have ever done. It took a good couple of days, like full time, to get this done, but I'm so happy with the end result, and I hope you guys dig it too. Now, this particular piece is available for sale on my Etsy store. I'm very proud of this one. Again, it can be dismantled the way I've designed it, so it makes for easy shipping. But overall, I'm just so stoked with how this turned out. I'm really quite chuffed, actually. With that being said, thank you so much as always for watching, guys. Wherever you are in the world, please have yourselves an absolute cracker of a day. I hope you're well, hope you're happy, be merry, be silly, and until next time, geeks, please always remember, cosplayers do it best.